Testing, 1, 2.
Hello, thank you. Hi, my name is Robert Telnick, and we're here at the Art Students League in Midtown Manhattan. This is our landmark headquarters here. And thank you for, tonight we're going to have a special program. We have alla prima painting and sculpture with 4 of our instructors at the league. And thank you for coming tonight, and we also have people, we're live streaming this on YouTube, so we have an audience around the world. And so I'd like to take a second, as Rudy mentioned before, please silence your phones if you're in the audience here. And the way the program will work tonight is, we have 3 painters working from one model. We have a sculptor over here working on another model. And we'll be doing 5 20-minute poses. We'll be taking breaks in between there. We'll get a chance to talk to the artists at that point. And there will be time later on for questions both from the audience and from YouTube. We'll be taking those up and reading them to you a little bit later. I'd like to thank our Executive Artistic Director, Michael Hall. I'd also like to thank our Board of Control and especially our President, Robin Lecter-Frank. So to introduce ourselves tonight, our first painter is Ricky Mujica, and he has awards from the Pastel Society of America, the Oil Painters of America, and the Museum of American Illustration. He worked for years as a professional illustrator with clients such as HarperCollins, and has painted murals for Sony and Lowe's Theaters. Ricky also teaches in the master's program at the Florence Academy in Italy. Thank you, Ricky. Yuka Imata earned her BFA from Massachusetts College of Art and Design and studied at the Art Students League here. She received a grant to study in Spain. Her award-winning work has been showcased at the Chelsea Art Museum, the National Arts Club, and overseas in Florence, Tokyo, and Kyoto. She's been featured in American Artist, Plein Air Magazine, and Drawing Magazine. She's represented by the Go Gallery in Connecticut. Welcome, Yuka. John Belardo, our sculptor, he's a fellow of the National Sculpture Society. He will be the Wallace Master Sculpture Program Artist Residence in 2024. His sculptures and drawings have been widely exhibited, including at the Butler Institute of Art, American Art, and the Azarian McCullough Gallery. He's a faculty member at Lehman College and the New York Academy of Art. He's also at the Newington Proxy Foundation. He's received many awards, including the Allied Artist of America Silver Medal in 2023. Thank you, John. John A. Varriano is award-winning representational artist. The 2016 AAPL Iden Bryan Memorial Award for Traditional Landscape and the 2015 Allied Artists of America Florence and Ernest Thorne Memorial Award for his portrait work. He's been featured in Fine Art Connoisseur and was profiled in a November 2017 issue of Plein Air Magazine. He is represented by Mark Gruber Gallery in New Paltz, New York, and the Lockwood Gallery in Kingston, New York. Welcome, John. Thank you. Tonight, our models are Michael Bishop. Hi, Michael. And Elena Patton. Hello, Elena. Okay, so thank you. We're going to get started here. As I said, we're going to be doing 20-minute poses, and we'll take a 5-minute break. And at the first break, I'll have a long interview with Ricky. So thank you, and we'll be taking audience questions a little bit later in the program. I'll let you know. Okay, thank you. Pose, please. Okay, thank you. That was 20 minutes, so let's take a bit of a break here. Well, hello, Ricky. How are you doing? So, why don't you tell us how you got started in art in your history?
So, my mother was a painter. She didn't, not professionally, but she loved to paint. So I always loved to draw. And then when it came time to pick high schools, everybody wanted me to go to these different schools, but nobody wanted me to go to art and design, high school of art and design. So I went there instead, so I wouldn't disappoint anybody. And so I went to art and design, and when I was 15 years old, Max Ginsburg was my high school art teacher. And in the class, Garen Baker was in the class. Stephen Assell was an upperclassman. We had Costa. We had Sam Goodsell when he was younger, right? And so that's really where I learned to paint. We ended up, Garen and I grew up together. I know him since he's 12 years old. And we live a block apart from each other, so we became really good friends, and we've been painting all this time. Then I went, from high school of art design, I went to Parsons. And then I went straight to work as an illustrator, because it was at the same time that Max, it was a different time for realists back then. You couldn't be a realist. And it was very difficult to be a realist. I can't say you couldn't be. But like Max and some other people were doing illustrations. So when Max went into the field of illustration, right? He gave up teaching, he went into the field of illustration. I followed him, and so did Garen and a couple of others. And so I spent 10 years doing illustration, and that's really how I got started.
Okay, thank you. So tell us your process. Tell us about your setup and the materials you're using and how you do your blocking.
So I work solvent free. I don't use any solvents because I started to get sick. For a while, I started to get sick from using solvents. I've been painting now like 40 plus years. And all of a sudden, about 10 years ago, I started to get sick. When I painted, I thought I was going to have to give up painting. I tried everything. I thought I was going to give up and become an acrylic painter. And then I discovered that solvents are relatively new in the world of painting. And but I didn't know how to do it, because everybody tells you can go solvent free, but nobody tells you how. And so what happened is I went to the Unfinished show with Bert Silverman, and I saw all the paintings before the 19th century. They were all painted with a dry brush instead of washes. And that was an aha moment. And since then I've been solvent free, and I will never go back. It's nice to have his son, who's 11, to be in my studio and not worry about him. And then lately, the latest things I've been doing is going sort of heavy metal free, so I don't have any cadmiums anymore. And I usually start with, because I don't use solvents, I can't push the paint around like I used to. So now I start with charcoal just to get placement. And then I come in and block in on that. I have a lot less colors than I normally have, or than I used to use. I only really have 6 colors. I don't use the black too much, except in emergencies. Like he's got a lot of black hair, and who wants to keep mixing black, right? And so, yeah.
Yeah, so what is your initial, what did you use to start blocking in with? Because you've already gotten into color. I don't know if the audience can see that, but can you do that just a little bit? Maybe that destroying.
So I blocked in with the charcoal. But this is very soft, fine charcoal, which gives me the freedom that I would normally have. I mean, it's not as good as blocking in using solvents and all that stuff, and you can do washes, but it's very good. It gives me an ability to really make, set up my proportions and, my composition. In my palette, when I start putting in colors, I have a section here. This is my lights, and these are my darks. I keep them separate. And if you'll notice, I pull my colors together. I don't plop them on top, because by putting the colors in these little wells and then pulling them together, you have much more finite control over your colors. Yeah, I guess that answers your question, right? And now I'm just putting in the second pass. Really, my painting is, my way of painting involves 4 passes, right? Kind of like you're building a house, right? The first pass is the blocking, which was the charcoal, and then the initial blocking with a color. And that's kind of like the framework of the house. You think about a house, you think of the 2x4s when you're building it. So now I'm going into the dead color layer, which is my second pass, right? And the way I think about it is like I'm putting up drywall on the walls. The next stage, and hopefully I get to work, would be the development layer, where I develop the paintings. And up until this point, I can jump around. But once I go to the development layer, you'll see I'm just gonna work on just one area at a time. And the dead color layer acts like a primer. And then finally, the 4th pass is what I call the beauty pass. And that's where it stops being shapes and colors, and it starts being a painting. The person becomes human to me, right? And I start thinking about the painting. I spend more time looking. Of course, I'm not gonna get there with 4 20-minute poses, but that's the point where I sit and I look, and what does it need? And I listen to the painting, and does it tell me that it needs, a darker background, a lighter background, or maybe I wanna make the nose a little bit bigger, even if it isn't for the model, or maybe I wanna make the hands a little bit bigger. So that's kind of like when if you think of the 3rd pass as the house is finished, it's painted, it's got all the electronics. The 4th pass is when you make it a home. You see, you bring in the chandeliers, you decorate it, you move the couch a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right. At least that's how it is in my house. Move to the left, move to the right, because I'm not in charge of that part of it. And that's it, yeah.
So you're gonna wait till about the 3rd pass to do the background, or you bring that in sooner?
Normally in the second pass, I do the whole background, right? Because the passes give me a chance to decide if this painting is worth it, right? When I'm doing big paintings, you want to spend 5 or 6 months or weeks doing a painting. That's time you're taking away from your family, from your kids, right? Especially now at my age, aside from the stuff that I have to do because of commissions, but the stuff that I do, you want to know if it's worth finishing this painting. So all my passes are designed to the end of each pass to assess the work and see if I'm in the right concept. After the blocking, it should be graphic. Everything there, my whole composition would be there normally, right? My whole composition would be there. I would even have the shadow that the cast on the walls. And then if it's graphic there and I'm still excited about it, and then we have the second pass. In the second pass, we have the color harmony. We have the dead color layer. It's basic, the color, right? And if this wasn't a painting where I'm brushed, right? I would block in the whole background because I want to know what the harmony is going to be, the color harmony, right? And I want to experiment. And the dead color layer is called the dead color layer because it's buried. So that gives me a chance to play around with the color harmony. So now when I go into the third pass, I'm not so much thinking about the art as I am thinking about getting the form and developing and, taking it to the level that I want, you see. At each one of these stages, I can dump the painting, and I have plenty of paintings that I've abandoned after the first pass, after the second pass, where I thought this was a great idea, and then when you see it, you're like, how many times does that happen? You see it, and you're like, oh, this is kind of corny, right? And so you dump it, right? And when I was younger, I would finish everything. And that's why I have so many bad paintings in storage.
Okay, thank you, Mesh. We'll check back a little bit later and see how you're going. Thank you. We'll be taking audience questions at the long break, so we'll just hold off for the time being. Thank you very much. And we're going to start on our second pose. Pose, please. Well, thank you. We're going to take a break now. So while we're over here, I'm going to speak with Yuka. Hi, Yuka. How are you doing?
Hi everyone, thank you for coming.
So tell me how you got started in art.
First I moved to, I started at the school, Massachusetts College of Art, and upon graduation, two of my mentors, Paul Rahili and Janet Monofo, Paul was here studying earlier on, so he really pushed me to come to Art Student League. And I did my own research, and basically I moved to New York, studied with Ronald Scher.
Okay. And what else have you been doing since then?
Since then, I've been showing with my gallery, Good Gallery in Kent, Connecticut, and as well as I have a representation by Portrait Inc. So I'm starting, or I'm working on the portrait career as Ron did, so following his path.
Okay, great. Can you tell us a little bit about your technique? Maybe you want to hold up your palette here and explain how you started your block in.
Yeah, so I always work on toned canvas to start it with. This is a toned with ivory black and yellow ochre. And after that, what this is done days ago. And then I started off with fine charcoal and then started to drawing so I can get all the drawing issues out of the way. And after I finished my drawing, and I went over it with raw umber so I can keep my drawing in oil, and when it's dry, and I can dust it off. So I'm on the second pass of putting the color down now.
Okay, we noticed that you use a mirror a lot to look at the drawing.
Yes, I do. So if any of you studied with me before, you know you have to use a mirror. So what I do is I stand exactly the same spot, and I try to get the mirror image of the model and as well as my painting. And so I can either do that from the sideways, mirror image, or I can also like look upside down. So I use this, and another tool that I use is the reducing glass. So I can see my image quickly with the smaller scale.
And that's to make sure your drawing is as accurate as possible?
Yes, exactly.
Do you use it later on to check your values?
I do, I think that would be the black mirror, but I tend to, within, five poses, I try to judge it by my eyes, yeah.
Okay, great. We do have a question from our audience that's watching on YouTube Live. They wanted to know, why do you use washes on the canvas when you start?
Oh, so it would be this color, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure quite what that question meant, if they meant the toned ground or if as you're laying in your light, you're laying in a pretty thin layer of light.
I don't judge well when it comes to, or if I work on the white canvas. So I like to tone the canvas with any colors, but I tend to go for yellow ochre and ivory black.
Okay, and at what point will you bring your background in?
Pretty soon. Once I cover the head, and I'll probably do that too. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. We're going to take just another minute. Okay, and I think we can start on our third pose. Thank you. Okay, thank you. We're going to take another break. Hi, John. How are you? Do you want a second to wash up there?
I don't mind if you don't. I don't mind if you don't.
Okay, that's okay.
Guess I would be dirty.
Yeah, sculpture's a little more dirty, a little more messy than painting. So, John, tell us about yourself and how you got started in art.
I'm a sculptor. I do a lot of teaching. I sculpt mainly in terracotta, which is a process that is kind of precludes things like armatures, but it has a wonderful quality that I enjoy, this immediacy. So most of my work you can find, it's like multi-figure narrative sculptures that are fired in terracotta.
Did you study art when you were a kid, or was it a later event?
I did, yes, absolutely. You know, as a child, I always drew, always worked with my hands, worked with clay. My father was something of an artist, and he always encouraged it. And I went to school, you know, as a normal kid, going to art school. Eventually,
Which school?
as an undergraduate, it was a small school upstate, and then I came down to New York, like, you know, you're required to do after you graduate. You go to New York, and then I went to the New York Academy way back, 95 to 97, and then I fell in love with the figure there. You know, my earlier education was not in the figure, but that's where I fell in love with learning the anatomy and just being in front of the model and being in front of, just having that time to contemplate, you know, this form. And so that was where my education, and then it's been, you know, almost 30 years of practice, so.
And teaching.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, as a lot of artists, we teach a lot, and, you know, here and other places, yeah. Lehman College. Lehman, yeah.
Thank you. This all art's difficult. For such a compacted time to do sculpture is especially difficult. So you got a little bit of a head start, but not really. You applied some clay to it. But go ahead and tell us how you've approached this.
Well, my method is generally pretty simple. It goes from mass to volume to surface. So mass is just the amount of clay in location. So, and then volume is more of an organizing principle. Volume is how are things symmetrical? How are they related to each other? What's the anatomical underlying structure? And then surface is about, you know, how's the light dance across the surface? What shadows are falling? And those elements, right? For a portrait, though, you may have noticed that I'm moving around a lot because it's obviously I have to deal with more than one angle, right? And then I've also asked Elena to move a little bit because it reveals more structure, the underlying structure. And so my process is really very much about how I can build something over time, how time is involved in the manifestation of the sculpture itself. So that's what's happening there, this movement in time. And so hopefully I get something more of a living image that comes from that element, that movement element.
You use calipers to take some measurements?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Is there
I see a couple key measurements that are really important, you know, width of the face that I got early, and then height, and, you know, where the eyes are located but most of it is just, you know, you have to fuss with it. You have to push it in, pull it out, push it in, and keep moving it back and forth. And then, you know, hopefully you land somewhere, right? It's always a little bit less wrong, right? Yeah, you're never right. You're always a little less wrong this time.
That's great. It's interesting because we did have a couple questions up on YouTube about your process. And I think you answered that nicely, but kind of going forward, when do you consider taking final steps toward the finished product?
Well, for me with terracotta, you have the life of the clay. So the clay early on, it could be in powder form, but really when I first start working with it, it is really soft. So I'm manipulating quite a bit. You saw that I have a mallet, and this is called the persuader, and my grandfather named it that, because that's how you get, never mind. So early on in the life cycle of the clay, you're manipulating it quite a bit. You're moving it around quite a bit. And then as it sets up, you have more of the ability to capture detail, right? So it'll hold form better, hold shapes better, and won't distort. If I hit it on this side, it doesn't distort so much on the other side. And I work with the clay all the way from the entire life cycle, all the way from really soft, actually quite hard, and I sometimes will carve into it when it's bone dry before it goes into the kiln.
Yeah, I was going to say, then can you describe that process a little bit?
So soft clay, this water clay will eventually dry, and the more it dries, the firmer it gets, and the firmer it gets, the more you can put detail and form, the more it'll hold form. And then as you get to a leathery state, you can carve into it beautifully. And then further on, when it's bone dry, sometimes you can do a little sanding and burnishing, and then it goes into a kiln, and a kiln will bring that water clay up to a temperature around 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which then, turns into a ceramic material, which, is then permanent, and so clay is actually the most fundamental and earliest of the art materials. We have 30,000-year-old clay bison. So this is a very, both primitive but at the same time it's contemporary.
Yeah, I think there's some religious allusions to being made out of clay. Yeah.
That may have been, it may be in there somewhere.
Somebody,
Just referring to the act of creation, right? Yeah.
You sort of answered this question. This was another question from YouTube. They were wondering why the model was standing and if we're going back and forth.
Right.
But you did sort of answer that.
I did sort of answer that. When it gets later in the night, I'll probably sit a little bit more. That's all, and so that's why she was standing. And the closer you can get, this is true about drawing. You see how close the painters get, and really they're getting close because their cone of vision is here, and then their drawing is here or painting. And the same thing here. The further away she gets from it, the more I have to work to kind of bring the form over. So it's much easier to get it. Plus, I was trying to get a profile from both sides, and so you're trying to marry all this information together. So it takes some time, and I don't know. I think it looks like her, but.
Oh yeah, you definitely. You'll get a chance to come up here after we're finished and take a look at these things and close up. And then the final thing someone wanted to know are you going to do the butterfly?
Okay, I promise to do something of a butterfly. Right.
Okay.
No promises on the quality.
All right, thank you. So everyone, if we're going to do another pose, and then we're going to take a long break. So at this point, if the audience here would like to ask questions, please there's a table in the back. There's some paper and pencils. If you want to write a question down, we'll get to them on the next break. Okay, thank you. We're going to start. And pose, please.
Ask me my favorite color.
What's your favorite color?
All of them.
No, that's a good answer.
you for posing. Joy, get a good stretch in. Well, hello, John Varriano.
Hello, Newman. Robert, how are you?
I'm well, how are you?
Great. I'm doing well, thank you.
So, John, tell us about your
My journey?
your journey in art.
My journey in art. Oh, my God. Well,
You want me to give you a second here and get you?
I was raised a poor boy in Queens, and I actually came to art a little late. I always did it as a young boy, but I didn't approach it seriously until after college, and only here at the Art Students League. So I arrived, they accepted me with open arms, and I never left. And so here I am. Greatest art school in the world. If you want to learn how to draw and paint and sculpt, you're in the right place. And that was it, you know, so it was something that I really wanted to do. I realized I wanted to do it as a young boy, you know, but I just, you know, life and you know, you do other things, you go to college for other things, and you're thinking about a career and all, and then at a certain point, sometimes it overwhelms you, and you say, no, this is what I want to do, and here I am, you know, so, and I never looked back, you know. It's been a great privilege to be able to do this, you know. So
Go ahead and mention a few of your teachers.
yeah, my teachers, I had quite a few here, but I'll mention the others, but the two main teachers were Gustav Rehberger for drawing and Frank Mason for painting. And I started here with Dick Barnett, who's Will Barnett's son, and I also studied with Michael Bourbon, and he, you know, was an exceptional summer of anatomy from him, very important. He was fantastic, and he still teaches here. Barney Hodes, I did 1 year of sculpture, and that was awesome, you know, so, and that really informed a lot of what I was doing in painting and vice versa. So, and especially, you know, Mason and Rehberger really taught in a sculptural fashion, you know, especially Rehberger. Mason too, planes, massing. So when I studied with Barney, it kind of related quite a bit, you know. And so those were the main, but then, you know, the other thing about the league is that if you're open, you know, you kind of can meet all these other people and instructors and students from other classes. So you're exposed to multiple points of view, and you have to be open. You know, you can just lock yourself up in the studio that you're studying, and that's kind of cool if you want to do that. But I wanted to see what others were doing, and some of my most important lessons came from the abstract teachers here. I really learned about art in a different way from Knox Martin, from Frank O'Kane, from Bill Scharf, you know. So that's the beauty of the league, is that it's so, you know, there's such a diversity of approaches within even your genre of figurative art that you know, you can be open to many things. But my main North Star would have been Mason and the Dumond lineage in the Mason class, you know.
Okay, so tell us how the work is going.
It's going okay, you know. It's getting there. You know, you never know at this point. This is the point where it can, you know, go off the rails. So, you know, this is, it's never a known entity, you know, especially when you're working like this. Because when you work like this, it's like if I'm doing a portrait commission, I'm much more careful, you know, because I don't want to waste too much time. I wasn't careful when I first started doing portraits, and I wasted a lot of time. So I was trying to paint kind of, you know, fluidly. But when I do these kinds of things, I like to, you know, kind of experiment. So each one is a little bit different. You know, each approach depends on the model, the lighting, the feeling, how I'm feeling, and I'll just run with it. You know, but if it's a job, then you have to treat it a little bit differently. So the approach here is like, you know, this is coming along because the drawing was kind of set earlier on. So
Yes.
I could just experiment with the paint a bit more. And I like to paint, I like to draw and sculpt with the brush. So the way I look at painting is that, you know, like the older masters, and you really see it in older painters from like 100 years ago and beyond, right? They use a lot of paint, much more than I'm using, you know? And they'll just, I know, I squeezed out a lot of paint. And, you know, you just kind of lay it on, you know, and then sculpt with it and kind of manipulate the forms with the paint. And then every now and then you have to scrape the whole thing down. So sometimes, like, I'll get to a certain point, scrape this whole thing down, but the essence of it is still there, and then work back into it in the same session. So then you can rebuild, and you would get a layering effect, you know? So it depends on how you're going at a given time, and you just change your approach, you know?
Okay, we have I was going to get to this, but we have a question from the audience. What colors are on your palette, and what is your preferred brand?
Pretty colors. They're all very pretty. See, just get pretty colors, and then try not to make your painting look less pretty than this. See, if you start with pretty colors and a nice canvas, your goal is, see, the canvas was beautiful. Look how nice this is. Yeah,
What did you tone that with?
I toned it with, well, you know, just, I had some phthalo blue, some raw sienna, and a violet of some sort. And I just mixed them all together. And I kept scumbling,
Making it pretty.
and I just make it pretty. When it looks kind of right, you know, it's okay, you know, just, so not, you know, my thing is not to go too dark, you know. And the colors are this. So my preferred brand is John Varriano, because I grind all of these. These are all my cadmiums. I'm very proud of my cadmiums. You know, this is my world here. They're not for sale. I make them for me. And that's, so yellow light, yellow medium, yellow deep, orange, red, orange deep, you know. Red medium, red deep. And then these I don't mix. This is alizarin. This is a mixed violet, you know, from the Mason Dumont lineage. And then...
Which is?
I'm going to tell you now. Ultramarine blue, phthalo green. And then I put yellow and white here just to create a cool string and, you know, change the shadows control the shadows with these, huh? It just looks pretty. It just, and the violet is just alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue. So that's it. And so what this is, you know, coming from the landscape lineage, this is the warm movement going from yellow to violet on the warm end, right, going through these colors. And then it's going from yellow to violet on the cool end. So in space, you have a movement of cools and a movement of progressions of cools and progressions of warms through the landscape. So the cools you see in the sky, right? That's where you really see the cool progressions. So do you need all of this to paint a portrait? Absolutely not. It's way too many colors. And Ricky's not into cadmiums, which is smart, and solvents. And this is all cadmiums and all solvents. And my kids, I don't know if it was bad for them, but, you know, they're out of the house and that ship has sailed, you know. So I just hope for the best, but I should have talked to you years ago. But I used to use mediums. Mason used a lot of mediums and he experimented very much with mediums, but I've come to just using as much just pure paint as possible and just enough solvent to kind of get them loose. That's it. And try to use just the paint straight. So that's it. That's the palette. And I try to keep it, like Ricky talked about before, I try to keep it organized with, you know, keep my darks and my shadows in one zone, the lights, and I like maintaining cools here. And the only thing I keep down here is the black, because I don't want necessarily the black here in this span, but I want the black to make grays. And as Ricky said, you know, if someone's got dark hair, you know, it's efficient. It's just really efficient. You know, it's just, you know, people say you shouldn't use black. I don't know. Velasquez used black. Matisse used black. You know, I can use black. So that's it.
Okay, I have a question from the audience. what makes the difference between a good portrait and a great portrait?
Oh, God almighty, Jesus. Really? Who asked that? Just cop to it, man. Was it you? I'm asking my wife. You asked that. No, difference between good and great. Okay, so I'll give a quick answer to that. Picasso's answer. So this will inform you. Picasso said that many people painted the king back then, many artists, but we accept Velázquez as the truth. That's pretty interesting, right? Because no one knows what the king looked like, really, other than the paintings. So why do we accept Velázquez as the truth? Because it's the greater art. Why is it greater? Because he infused those portraits with more humanity. Everyone looks at the technique, everyone looks at and all that's important, but it's really a humanity you put into it, and Rembrandt puts into it. I think that's what it is. I think that there's a humanism when you look at a great portrait, because it doesn't matter if, you don't know if it looks like the person oftentimes, right? But you can just feel a certain kind of human energy to the thing. So I think that that's what separates, and how do you get there? When you find out, you tell me.
All right, thank you. We'll come back to you a little bit later. Oh, Ricky. Come join me, Ricky. Come join me, Ricky. Yes, you. I know, but you're a likable guy, so we're going to come visit you again. Likable.
Oh,
So,
I said I'm the old guy.
if you like that, yeah, you can have that moniker. So tell us what's going on here.
So I'm in the throes of my third pass. Normally, I like to let it dry before I continue to resolve, but I'm just trying to get as much done as I can within the time allotted. I'm putting in some of the background color. I'm going to put in some of this with a big brush in the next 20-minute segment. I'll try and get some of this stuff in. It's a little frustrating because I stand back and I see everything that's wrong, and I'm like, ah. But yeah, I'm just working at just little bits at a time, just trying to fix little things at a time, and then just gonna go on to put in some of the background just so that there's something there and it's not just a head floating.
We have a couple questions for you. Someone from the audience asks, if you don't use solvents, how do you clean your brushes?
That's a good question. Linseed oil. So I use linseed oil to clean my brushes, but I have to make sure that I get it all off my brushes because I firmly believe that there are no rules in art. There's nothing. I don't care what anybody tells you. Anything is possible, but there are laws. Laws that we must not break, and fat over lean is one of them, right? Oil is fat, and fat over lean simply means that the upper layers have more oil than the lower layers. So the lower layers have less oil. There's more of the pure paint. And so when I'm using the oil to clean my brushes, I make sure I get as much off of my brushes as I can. I only have 6 colors. Most of the time, I'm only using 3. I'm just really using red. If you see, I'm barely using the orange or the green, just red, yellow, and blue mostly. So when I'm working within an area, I don't really have to clean my brush as much. I just wipe it. The only time I clean my brush is when I go between light and dark or when there's a real big color change. And then I wipe my brush and then I'll clean it in the linseed oil, and I try to get all the linseed oil. But now, as I'm going in, since this is alla prima, fat over lean is not as important with alla prima, right? Because it's all one shot. So I'm using more oil to get it flowing as I go at this stage. So I'm using the oil as a medium as well. Hope that answered the question.
Yeah. Yes, you did, and actually you kind of almost answered the next question, which is, given that you're using a limited palette, And I think they mentioned specific limited use of white, which is not entirely true, but how do you tackle the contrast and avoid the paint getting muddy?
All right, so my answer is going to be controversial here. I don't believe in muddy colors. I don't believe in chalky colors. I once had a conversation with Richard Schmidt, and he said, I don't believe in muddy colors or chalky colors, just the wrong color. And that's what it is. When a color looks muddy, it's because it's the wrong color for the environment, right? A muddy color could look brilliant in another situation. For instance, if we have the color of the light, we have an orange light. If you make a light blue, just a pure blue, that blue is going to look chalky. It doesn't belong in that light. You see, if you have a very cool, say, overcast light, and you put in a brown, a warm brown, it's going to look muddy to us. But put that same brown in a painting that's under a red light, a warm light, an orange light, and that brown looks brilliant, you see? So if I see a color feels muddy or chalky, it's because it's the wrong color. Does that make sense? I have 3 colors. Mostly they harmonize.
Okay, and we have a question from YouTube. For commissions, how many head studies do you do before the final painting?
That's also a good question. So sometimes, more often than not, I end up doing 1 head study. But sometimes there's a special thing about the person that I want to get, and I'll do several. I've done as many as 5 or 6 studies, and I end up having tons of them of the same person. And each time, when I do the head studies, I'm not so interested in getting the exact proportions as I am with getting to know the model, the feeling that I get from the model. Because painting, I believe painting is like a conversation, right? You're having a conversation between the model, you, and the canvas, right? And when I want to know the model. As the painting goes on, we're not making a snapshot, right? That's why I don't like working from photos. I don't enjoy working from photos. I like working from life because we're painting the model, the person over time, and we're trying to reveal something about them that the camera won't, you see? So as you're painting, you're getting to know this person, right? And so my studies, they are a way for me to get to know the person, the little idiosyncrasies, and what do I want to emphasize, what I want to change, what I want to add, what colors I think would help this person show who they are more, what kind of, what little things in their expressions do I want to emphasize. Maybe the person does this with their eyebrow. In the study, I can say, oh, you know what, maybe I want to exaggerate that. Does that make sense? And then I try to see if it works in the study. If you can go like this, instead of it being like this, it's like this, and does it still look like the person? And then in some ways, it ends up looking more like the person.
All right, thank you. Yuka. Yes, please join me over here.
A minute 30.
So, Yuka, tell me how it's going.
What's that?
Tell me how you're doing here. It's looking good.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to the form and a little more details, and that would be my 20 minutes, last 20.
Yeah, we have one more pose. Okay.
Yep.
So, I have a couple questions for you here. Oops. I can find it.
Or I can answer the question later.
No, that's okay. Here it is. Can you describe your process in the mirror in a little more detail?
A little more detail. When I turn to the side, then I'll be looking at my painting and the model side by side. And when I put it over my eyebrow, then I'm looking at the model, am I painting upside down? And I do look at the painting upside down quite a bit when I need to know whether if I see anything, any part that looks flat, and that's where I'm gonna be working on.
Yeah, do you also flip your canvas around sometimes?
I do, and if I have time, I probably would do, but if, this is convenient.
Yeah, it's a little easier than having to do that. But and plus, you can keep the reference in the same frame.
Yes, yes.
Actually,
At all?
oh no.
I'm surprised people are curious about the mirror.
So what do you think the most important element in capturing the essence of the model is?
Likeness, of course, but I think capturing existence of the sitter is, I mean, at least like most important for me.
Yeah, and that just takes time and just working back and forth, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But also, do you think of it in terms of the shape analysis? Or are you thinking about a specific thing, or are you thinking over the overall shape?
I don't know how I could describe it to bring out the existence of the person, but I guess it's something to do with the likeness. But I wanted to capture something that makes him look like him. And it could be the life in him, or if I have a longer time period with the sitter, and then I try to spend time with them and try to get to know them. If I'm doing a child portrait, then I will talk to the parents and have them describe, what they're like or what their ties are like. So understanding their personality is also important to me.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Hi, John, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, I thought.
Note cards.
Here, you want to take the mic?
Sure.
So, describe how you're doing here.
I think I'm doing pretty well. I don't know. It's always a matter of fussing with it, but I think I'm getting a little bit of life out. Going back and forth. So. Yeah.
Great, okay. What do you hope? We have one more session. What do you hope to get finished?
Well, one of the main things to deal with a likeness is the color of the sculpture. So, in other words, there's a light and shadow structure across the face that really you can only deal with through light and shadow. So you have to deal with the color of the face, or the color of eyebrows, color of eyelashes, color of lips, color of the skin, and so you have to deal with all those things within the clay and within the textures, within the shadow, the way it sweeps across the face. So I'll have to deal with that in some way. And but other than that, I'm really just trying to find that person inside, the spirit, the soul that's in there, because ultimately that's what you're always trying to do. You're always trying to capture something of that individual.
So that's the most important element.
Yeah, ultimately, that's that far off goal. You're really just trying to deal with the things in front of you, whether you need you to move that form out or push it back in or round it over. Ultimately, that's the goal, is to find that when somebody, the likeness, right? Because you say, well, that looks like the person. It's the image of the person. But does it, do you come in around the corner and go, yeah, that's the person? But that's not the most easy thing to do. You have to just trust your process. Do a couple measurements here and there, but I think that's really what I focus on, is just that one. Try to make each blob of clay mean something. So cheek. The meaning really kind of emerges out of the constant process of meaning something when you're touching the clay. So, and sometimes it's just, oh, the eyelash, but then it's 1,000 of those, or sometimes it's 1,000,000 of those that really builds up a deeper meaning.
All right, thank you. Okay. So now we're going to move on to our last pose. So pose, please. Okay, artists, you have 3 minutes left for your final strokes of genius here.
Here it comes. Exciting.
Okay, thank you very much.
You mean like painting in front of an audience, or just, life?
No, any friend of mine honest, let's keep it.
Just it's, in terms of painting process, all I would say is that, be willing to experiment and have fun. So whenever I approach a painting that, again, is not something that's a job that has to be done in a certain efficient way, I try to experiment a little bit each time, to a certain degree, of course, within reason. So that's what I did here. I just approached it. I've been working a little bit more freely and loosely lately, and that's what I did. That was my recap.
Yeah, yes, do you feel like you got a good likeness and kind of some of his energy? Yeah.
Where is it? He's split, man. Yeah, it's pretty close. Yeah, it's pretty close. Yeah, pretty good. It's in the neighborhood. It would be something that I would have to tweak it. But again, there's always that risk of like really screwing it up. So.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Are you going to continue with it at this point?
You coming home with me? If I would have, I think that's a good statement. I would rather just leave it like that, you know, and not mess with that. If I would let it really dry and whatnot, scrape some of it down, then maybe I would work back in to really finish it, but I would need him, you know. I wouldn't want to do that out of my head at this point.
Yeah, I need it. You don't have any other reference material, any drawings to work from, so.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. If I had a couple of photos, then I could finish it, you know. So it's nice kind of having a couple of photo references, then you do most of it from life, or a lot of it from life, and then you refine it, because then you have the colors, you know, which the photos never give you quite right. So, and a couple of drawings. So then you could work on it on your own. But without the model, what happens is you end up losing the energy more than anything, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Ricky, come join us. Yeah, you can turn a little bit there. Okay, so what do you, give us a recap. What do you think?
You know, I wish I could have another hour, but it's, you know, it was fun. I just enjoyed myself. I really enjoyed the conversation that I was having with the models, sort of visually, and you know, there are some things that I wish I had time to fix, as always. You know, it's funny. Somebody once said, I read once. Somebody said that the painting is never done. You just get to the point where it's okay to let it go, right? And so I got to the point where it's okay. It's okay for me to let it go, but it's never done, right? If I had another 3 days, I would do it. If another 3 weeks, I would still continue working on it, right? Fixing things, you know, little bits at a time.
You're happy with your drawing? Are you happy with your drawing?
I think it looks like him, right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. I'm okay with the drawing. There's some things that I would fix. I think I didn't quite get the chin right. You know, another 10 minutes maybe I might have gotten it.
We did have a question from someone on YouTube. Yeah, you didn't really change the background. You kept that violet rather than go to the blue of the.
Yeah, because I could have gone to the blue, but I decided to do it kind of violet-y because I just like the way purple and violet. Right? So like I made that decision in my second pass as I started to put down the color. I initially was going to make it this blue, and then I accidentally put a little bit too much magenta in there, and I like the violet, and I just like the way it looks. And one of the things I think is really important to me about painting is that, you know, you got to keep an eye out for when you change your mind. At times when you your mind or do other things. The other thing that I always I try to advocate for is that it's not enough for the drawing to be right, for the colors to be right, for the values to be right, it's got to be beautiful too. Whatever that means, I don't know what that means, right? Like I can't make it beautiful for you, and you can't make a painting that's beautiful that I'm gonna think is beautiful, because you can't control what other people think. You can only control how you feel about the painting, right? So as I'm painting, I'm always thinking, is this beautiful to me, whatever that is, or sublime? And when I made the mistake to put a little bit of more violet into it, I said, wow, that looks beautiful. And I decided to go for it, because I think that's the most important thing, right? That you are making the paintings that you would buy, that you would go hungry for, right? It's such an important thing to me. I made the choice. I thought the violet looked better to me, and so that's what I went with.
Okay, great. Would you want to continue working on this?
Are you going to pay for another 20 minutes? Just kidding. I'm okay. I can let it go. But if it was my painting, I would. If it was a painting that I wasn't doing as a demo, I would put another week or two into it.
Okay. Thank you. So Yuka, come join us over here and give us a recap of how you feel.
I feel like I just ran a marathon. That's how I feel, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I usually try to think about how much time that I have and then how much information that I can put it in. And I think I did what I could do for the given time.
Yeah, you have a very, very strong light and shadow statement there.
Yep, yep. Yeah, thank you for, I mean, you know, Michael did a wonderful job, and I don't even have to correct him. So thanks to him. And I basically just enjoy like capturing the color and then also, you know, painting and then try to get a likeness. And I think I did okay.
Yeah, I think so too. Once again, do you think you're going to continue working on it, or are you finished?
I think when I set my mindset for, what is it, it was 100 minutes, then I feel like this is done. I don't think I will work on it after this.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, John.
Hello.
So give us a recap.
Well, I pushed around a lot of clay, pushed it this way, and I mooshed it that way, and I think it turned out, you know, pretty good. And it's always a lot of fun, you know. It's like I have said, is that, you know, you just fall in love with the process of kind of being in that state of mind where you're, you know, seeing something, reacting to it, and kind of manifesting it in clay, which is something that, you know, has always inspired me. It's just like, here it is, it's that thing. But then also how you can interpret that through all the different levels of clay. So, yeah, it's a wonderful time, you know. It's a lot of fun. And, you know, anytime I get a chance to stare at something and work from life, I have a tremendous amount of gratitude, you know, for that.
Great. So at this stage, what will you do now?
Oh, I'll definitely not touch it. I'll probably, I'll think about it maybe tomorrow, look at it again to see if I want to fire it. Otherwise, you know, most things I recycle, you know, but I put a lot of time. I think some people said it was good. Other people were going like this, you know. So we'll see. I'll take a vote maybe in class tomorrow. Nobody? There's a guy back there. No, okay. Well, we'll see. You know, usually what you do with a terracotta, if you're not going to make a mold, which you hollow it out, and then, you know, you put it in the kiln. So we'll see. And I won't touch it again, not without Elena sitting next to me. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much. It turned out very lovely.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to turn the microphone over to my colleague, Eva Avenue. She's going to wrap our evening up here.
Okay. Thank you all for staying so long. We had a pretty consistent audience of over 100, Garen pointed out, so that was pretty exciting that everyone recognized how special this was tonight. My name is Eva Avenue. I am the student recruiter here at the Art Students League. Thank you so much for attending this event. The Art Students League offers a wide variety of classes in painting, drawing, mixed media, printmaking, and sculpture. We have a large number of online classes also for people to take from the comfort of their home. I will be hosting an open house on February 24th. You can sign up on our website at artstudentsleague.org. I will take people around a tour on the building, and you can find out more about what the league's about. Also, if you go to the artstudentsleague.org, you can sign up for our newsletter and get updates on the 150th anniversary celebrations. I want to thank our staff tonight for putting this together. Rudy Bravo, Jennifer Liu, Rosie Ruiz, Santiago Apollo, the maintenance department, our models, and our instructors. Have a good evening. Yeah, we're gonna do that right now.